All right, here we go. Podcast episode number 3 with Mac Brosnan. So we're starting to call the podcast Come On With It. You guys probably all know this by now because that's the name of it on Apple and YouTube and Spotify, so that's pretty sick. I've been listening to what you guys are saying, so I think I'm going to start changing a couple things up. I don't really know what I'm going to do yet, but so today we got Mac, right? Great story. I've been friends with Mac. Mac has been one of my best friends for probably the last 7 or 8 years at this point, right?
10 years now.
10 years, right?
Yeah, that's crazy.
He was like one of 4 people in my wedding, right? Because I got married in Vegas, whatever. And
we were late to the wedding.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Jen was waiting there for us.
Yeah. My wife was waiting at the altar for us.
Just like a movie, came blasting in, tires screeching in the minivan, threw it in park. Tossed the valet the keys.
Left the minivan straight in front of the door.
Yeah, it was just like some hangover shit.
We legit in Vegas. Yeah, we legit jumped the minivan into the parking lot.
Yeah, dude.
I was driving.
I tell people about it all the time. I'm like, here, I have this selfie from me and Derrick when we were late to his wedding.
Dude, I totally forgot about that. Yeah, because the guy making my suit fucked the whole thing up.
I think we went the day before to get suits though, so it wasn't like a.
Yeah, well, he
didn't
knew
have
the
much
timeline.
time.
He knew the timeline. He knew the timeline. So, got Mac in here, which is pretty special because Mac doesn't actually live in Connecticut. Mac is mainly in New Mexico, a lot of time in Houston. He's obviously from Connecticut. But, when I heard he was in town, I definitely wanted to record a podcast. And, he's got a really good story that not a lot of people hear. So, this is going to be a good one. So, Mac, tell me a little bit about yourself. And don't forget your dad, because your dad's an OG.
I don't know. I mean, I think about stuff. I think about this, and I've thought about it, obviously, when we talked about me coming on here and stuff, like what we're going to say and talk about. And there's just so many stories aside from the story.
I have a couple key stories, and they're probably the same stories that you have that we're going to go over. One of which was racing Yachty.
Oh, yeah.
That was a sick story.
Yeah, that's a good one. But yeah, the podcast with Noah, like, sorry to all my friends that do YouTube and podcasts and stuff like that. Like, I've been on 4 or 5 podcasts now, maybe a few more. I've never watched a single one with me on it. I've never even watched, I don't think I've watched a single YouTube video, friends or not friends, start to finish.
Yeah.
But I watched Noah's, and I watched it start to finish, and I'm like, I was texting you as if you were doing it live.
Yeah.
Well, like as I got to a certain point, I'm like, oh, remember this? As if you're going to be like, oh, yeah, and this happened too.
Right. Mac would text me like parts of the story that we left out, which when you're talking about being friends for 10 years or Noah for 20 years, right? Like, dude, there's not enough time in a day to go over it all.
Yeah, like he was like, when Noah was talking about his truck blowing up on the dyno, Derrick's like, oh, I don't remember that. And I'm like, oh, remember that was the day that you literally weren't allowed into Canada? So you had to turn around, come back. Everybody else went to Canada to go to F1, and Noah was there. Noah was ready to go, so he just brought the truck down to the dyno. Derrick blew it up almost immediately, and then went on with the day.
So wait, I actually don't remember that, right? So I went to Canada. I tried to go to Canada first
With Kay and them.
with Kay.
Yep.
Got denied at the border.
Yep.
They gave my boy Kay gave me his BMW to drive back home alone. They basically just got an Uber at the border and left me with his car. I drove it home and met Noah on the dyno, at your dyno.
Yeah, with Kay's BMW. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Big 7 Series guy.
And that's really what kicked off my 7 Series. No. That's a lie. I had one before then already.
Yeah, but it was a nice long drive for you to think and reflect.
Dude, I never told anybody this, but I remember he like gave me the car. He was like, I'm not worried about it. Like, the car's good. It was an E66, the worst 7 Series ever made, right?
Good looking though. I like.
Good looking, and I ended up having one later. But
that's the case with a lot of BMWs. Some of them look real good, just big piles.
You can't touch them, right?
Yeah.
Dude, and he's like, yeah, the tranny will do something weird, right? I remember I rolled off the highway and like the roll the stop sign deal. You know what I mean? Like, you just like slow down 2 miles an hour and then you roll and then you get back in the throttle, right? This thing downshifted so hard that it rattled my teeth and it ended up breaking the tranny, and he had to replace the tranny like the next day.
Really?
Yeah.
Chirp the tires, whole deal?
Dude, the whole deal.
Like jamming a bike down to first?
Yeah, exactly. So, Mac's story is really cool, right? Mac started off in a small shop in Brantford. Well, actually, before even that, Straight Jacket.
Yeah. So I was in college, and I was working at a chemical plant in New Haven where Jamie Marsh is at now.
The one that he blew up.
Yep, exactly.
Edit that out.
Literally blew the roof off the joint.
Blew the roof off the joint. Google it's sick.
Yeah.
Wasn't Jamie's fault at all.
Yeah. But so I was working there. I was in college. I was making good money, but I was going to school to be a state trooper at the time. Crazy, how that
it's not as crazy. It's not as crazy as you think, dude.
So basically, when I was a kid, when I was in high school, I'm like, how can I make $100,000 a year and still be able to go on Craigslist,
right,
and stuff like that? And in my head, I'm like, all right, if I work nights, like I'll be able to do car stuff during the day. And like my ultimate goal back then was to make $100,000 a year and then eventually start to flip exotics. Like buy a Lambo or something like that, sell it later on and whatever. But that was why it wasn't that I had a passion for being a state trooper. I'm like, I think that would be a cool job, a fun job. And I know people that are stateies now and they love it,
right.
But the more I worked at that job in New Haven, I was working 6 to 6. I think it was 6 days on, 4 on, 3 off.
Yeah, they got a weird schedule over there.
Yeah, and it was a rotation. Sometimes it was nights, sometimes it was days. And I realized that I'm basically working a similar schedule to what I was going to do if I end up being a statey.
And you already hated it.
Yeah, it was just like, for me, I was there 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. on a Monday that was a holiday. So everybody's having like barbecues, stuff like that. And I was like, fuck this. And then I went with one of my boys, Ed. Remember Ed with the Evo?
Wait, Ed, the one that worked for the power company, for the train station, for the train company.
Yep.
Wow, holy shit.
Ed Hotchkiss, the man. And he asked me to go. This is when Mikey, the owner of M&S, passed. Remember, he was test driving a customer's car.
Yeah, I remember.
Yep. At that time, I was using the same machine shop he used in Long Island. Ed was good friends with him. I'd only met him like one time. But he asked me just to go with him. And I was like, yeah, sure. And I went out there to Long Island. And I was already having these thoughts about the hours and the job, stuff like that. And it was like a family and friends deal, like a memorial for him at his house. I don't remember it being posted anywhere, advertised, like family and friends.
Right.
We got there and you couldn't walk down the street. Thousands of people.
Damn.
Just like mobbing. And I was like, this is the coolest shit ever.
Yeah, that's pretty
Like,
badass.
it's obviously not cool that he passed.
Right.
But, and literally on the way home that day, I was like, I want to do something. I want to make a name for myself doing something that I love.
Yeah.
Not just go out and try to make $100,000 a year. You
Right.
know what I'm saying?
Be a state trooper, just get your 20 years in and be out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, I want to make a name doing something that I loved. And at that time, we had already got my dad the shop. And I was doing a lot of Evo stuff on the side, and I was getting pretty busy with that. When we first got the shop for my dad, it was like...
It's the same shop in Brantford.
Same shop that he's in right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, this would be cool. I'm in college. I have an Evo. I'll do some work on the side, make some extra money, and it was going really well. And everything just kind of fell into place. Like, Doug decided to change states, and he basically was like, hey, if you want my dyno, I'll give it to you for what I owe on it. Basically, you can transfer it into your name. Mm-hmm. So I got a smoking deal on this dyno.
The Mustang
the
roller
Mustang
dyno.
that was all-wheel drive Mustang dyno. He had bought it brand new like 3 years prior to that. And I got it for half of what it cost brand new. Mm-hmm. And then right as that happened, because I didn't have anywhere to put it, I'm like, I don't know, whatever. Right as that happened, the guy next door to my dad moved out.
Right.
So I was like, damn, like this kind of seems right, And so I took over the dyno from Doug. My dyno payment ended up being more than my rent at the shop.
Oh, I believe it.
And so I'm like, all right, I got to get X amount of cars on the dyno to cover this payment, like whatever. And that's how that really started.
What year is this?
This is 2015.
Okay.
2015.
So an all-wheel drive Mustang dyno in 2015 ballpark spitball money?
65 grand.
Yeah, which that's a lot.
Yeah. It was back then, before obviously the mainline hype and stuff like that. It was like one of the best dynos.
No, it was, especially for all-wheel drive, because they were eddy current. They had resistance.
They had a brake, all that stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. So I got that, and then that's when the straitjacket stuff happened, because I was like, all right, if I'm going to drop out of college and let my whole family down, like, you know, and basically do the opposite of what I should do on paper, I got to have a plan here. Like, I can't just work on Evos. Like, that's not what I want to do at the end of the day. Like,
right. Nobody wants to work on Evos.
Yeah, a really unreliable four-cylinder that's not that easy to work on, you know?
Right.
And I was already doing the GTR stuff with Doug. I had started that 3 years earlier in 2012.
Explain to these guys what Doug you're talking about.
Doug Ross, Weapons Grade Performance, right down the street was where our shop was at.
Yep.
I worked for him as soon as I got out of high school. That summer, I was going into my freshman year of college. I worked for him like every day for free, just because I wanted to be there and I wanted to learn and I wanted to, you know, be hands-on and prove that I was worth being there.
Right.
And I think first semester of freshman year, I was going from school to Doug's to go work for free, you know, and I was about to hit him up and be like, hey man, like, I really got to get paid for this stuff. Like, I need a job, basically. Right. And I think like the same day that I had that thought, he texted me. He's like, hey man, you can't be doing this stuff for free anymore. Like, I want to hire you, whatever. So I would come down, because I was going to school in Danbury. I would come down as many nights as I could. After school, when I was out of class, when I wasn't playing football, I was out of class, I'd come down, I would work, and I'd get as many hours in. And I learned a lot. That's where I started working on GTRs.
Well, so Danbury to Wallingford's like an hour. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So that's a long commute.
Yeah. I would rather do that than do other stuff, you know?
100%.
So party, stuff like that, like I would rather just go and work. And don't get me wrong, like I did my fair share, and I definitely did my fair share before college. But I was kind of over it by the time I got to college.
Right.
So more of the time than not, I would just go and work. And it was, again, I was in college making, you know, good money every week, and still going to college full time, and still playing football, and you know, all that stuff. So it was a lot to juggle, but I learned a lot from Doug.
Because Doug was early in the GTR game.
Yeah.
Very, very early.
Yeah, we went to TX2K13.
Wow.
Yeah, I got picked up from my dorm room by Doug in the truck and trailer. Yeah. And went all the way to Texas.
And GTR, what? So the first GTR in America, the R35, 2009. Right.
Yep, and he started his shop in 2012. But he already owned them, and he was doing stuff out of his garage at his house. He had a lift in his garage at his house. Yeah. He was doing motors and turbos and stuff like that, and then he kind of made it a side thing. So Doug's family actually owned the chemical plant in New Haven. Yeah. That's how that whole...
The one that Jamie Marsh blew up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, as soon as Jamie got on the keys...
Dude, exploded it.
But, so, that's how that whole thing came about years later. But, yeah, so I learned that stuff from Doug. I learned a lot. I got a lot of hands-on experience with the GTRs and stuff like that. And I was like, dude, I can't just do Evos. Like, I really want to do GTRs, whatever. And that's when the straitjacket thing came about. So I met Chris Jardine. He had a GTR at the time.
Yep.
And
the black one.
Yep. And I met up with him, and I'm like, hey, this is what I'm thinking about doing. Like, would you be willing to let me build your car? And, you know, how crazy do you want to go with it? You know, obviously I'll do the work for free, like all that stuff. You know, I wanted a shop car at that time.
Right.
And
well, hold on. So Chris Jardine.
Yep.
Very successful cell phone towers is what he was doing.
Yeah, he does cell phone towers. Does a lot in cellular.
And you just happened to be friends with him probably because he had a GTR?
No, actually, I knew him before that. Knew him through other people. So my buddy DJ dated his girlfriend at the time, her daughter. Okay. And that's how I made the connection. So I had him put me in touch with him, and I had done some bolt-ons for him. And then I met up, we had lunch, we went to like Jersey Mike's or something like that. And I said, this is what I want to do. And he's like, well, have you thought about, you know, having a partner? I was like, no, not really. But, you know, what do you have in mind? So he already had that sweet shop with the blue floors, all that stuff.
Right next to your shop.
Right next to my shop, yep. So Chris helped me a lot. You know,
Chris is cool, dude.
Chris is really cool. Yeah. To this day, I talk to him.
Yeah, Chris is still a man.
Talk to him when I can. Like, he looked over my contract when I went to Houston. You know, like he's been a huge help for me, like you know, a mentor. Yeah. Through the years past.
It's always nice. Somebody as successful as he is. He was cool to everybody that he talked to.
Yep.
Like, he never big leagued anybody. He never thought he was better than anybody. Like, he would talk to me. I didn't have two nickels rubbed together at the time. He was cool as shit to me, though, 100% of the times, except for when we blew his car up in Ohio. He was pretty pissed about that.
Understandable.
Yeah. Yeah, we torched the cylinder head
Blew
straight
the
off
head
of
gaskets right out the side of that.
I remember Visconti was like, it said 90 pounds of coolant pressure, but there's no way that's real. And then me and Mac looked at it and we're like, it was definitely real.
Yeah, all the hoses were blown off.
Everything was blown off of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was sick.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that was another part of a sweet learning curve we had there.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think that was like, 2 years we did the straight jacket thing, and then we didn't have like a falling out or anything. We just went our separate ways. You know,
Well,
I was in it full time. You know,
Right.
He liked to do it as more of a hobby, and
Yeah, he had a lot going on anyways.
yeah. So
That wasn't where he made his money.
Hobbies
Yeah.
aren't that fun when you're shooting the head gaskets out of the side of
No,
stuff. You know, figuring things out
With
so.
stacker trailers and a bunch of degenerates.
Oh,
just
we
blowing
did
your
it
shit
right
up. Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were fucking stuff up correctly.
Well, that was so around that time is when I met you, and I remember meeting Mac, and years later, me and Mac had talked about this. So we're in the same area. In fact, I lived at the time probably only 10 minutes from Mac's shop, and I don't remember exactly how, but me and Mac got linked together right around the time, right in the middle of the straight jacket deal. So it must have been what, 2013, 14, 15?
No, yeah, I got the shop in 2015.
Right.
So it was around there, 2016-ish.
Right.
Something like that. I think Jamie put us in touch because you needed to get your car on the dyno.
That's right. I needed a dyno.
Yep. You already had the LS
Yep.
and the silver car.
Yes.
And you needed to put it on the dyno, and that was it. And then you just never left.
Right. And that it's funny, right? Because when we met each other, right? You know, the one thing you're going to learn about Mac, right? Probably through this right here is, you know, Mac. He would, when I first met him, he would work on Evos and GTRs, and whatever your opinion is of that is whatever, right? But at the core of this kid's fucking existence, this kid is a filthy, dirty drag racer just like the rest of us. And when I met him, you start to realize that. Like, yeah, I get it. He's working on this Evo. Thing's gay as shit, right? I fucking hate Evos, right? But when you talk to Mac, you're like, oh, this kid's about it. And when you talk to his dad, you realize this is generational, right? They've been doing this, right? And I remember when we met, years later, we had talked about this, and I'm like, how did we not know each other? Like, before that, like, how were we so close? We're both doing cool shit. We both had shops, you know what I mean? And we just didn't know about each other. And the day that I met you, legitimately never left again.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, I think, I say back then, it was 10 years ago, you know?
That's
like
pretty far. That's pretty long ago,
so
dude.
like, social media wasn't what it is now.
Yeah, that's
you
true.
know, like it wasn't as crazy. You don't like, oh, this guy's from right here. Like, you just knew it was only word of mouth really back then.
Right.
You know, if you met somebody at the Pike or
Yeah.
something like that.
Oh,
But if you
wow.
didn't have the same friend group, like that was it. So Jamie, I think, made that introduction just by needing the dyno, and that was it really.
Yeah, that was sick. So when I came into the picture, Mac had the shop right next to his father's shop. They're kind of both called Command Performance. I think at the time they were probably just both Command Performance.
Yeah.
And I became really close with them. So that led me into helping him with the cars at Straight Jacket. And we did a lot of cool shit with the Straight Jacket cars. That was very cool. We traveled all over,
Yep.
right?
Did some roll racing, did some drag racing.
Yep. And, you know, at the time the car was on, and this was really the turning point, right? The car was on a stock ECU.
Mm-hmm.
John Visconti was tuning. It was on an Ecutech.
Yep.
And the car made a lot of power. And we were in Ohio. I don't think we were roll racing. I think we were dig racing. Yep.
Yeah, we were at the Butcher Shootout.
That's what it was.
Yep.
And
Big things of ice cream for $1.
Yep. Still, I think it's $2 now.
Yeah, inflation.
Yep. And we fucking nuked the motor out of it. And that was really the end of that deal.
I have to touch on this.
Go ahead.
That was not on Visconti.
Oh, I didn't.
And no, I'm just saying, you know, like John did tune the car, but he's also never blown up a car for me. You know, he did a great job with what we had then, and stuff's progressed way further now.
Yeah.
But when we took the next step, you know, when Chris and I separated, and I was like, all right, like now I need to do something on my own. That's when we were out of the shop in Brantford. I don't know if you remember that.
Well, it was all, I remember it vividly, right? It was all around the same time.
Yeah, so that stuff had happened in that summer, I think August.
Right. We blew up the straight jacket car. That was kind of it for Chris. He was kind of out, rightfully so. He's hundreds of thousands of dollars into a hobby.
Yep.
Right? And we had just annihilated the motor in the thing.
And it was a long block from another company that built
Right.
GTR stuff. We bought the long block, and everybody went over the logs, and it was like, hey, this shouldn't have happened, but it did. And, they came to the table. They, gave us new heads. And
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
Who was it?
I don't know. I don't know if that's a good idea.
Because you don't want to give them the credit, or you don't want to put them on blast?
I don't want to blast anybody, because after that, I also started building my own engines, because I was like, I'm out on this deal.
Right.
Said crazy things like, we've never seen one blown this bad. And when we got the old heads back, it had like a smudge on the deck.
Right.
Like it couldn't have been, it wasn't torched. It wasn't destroyed. I ended up using those heads later on. I just decked them, and that was it.
You're saying it didn't torch it like we thought it torched it.
Yeah, they were basically saying like, oh my God, this is so bad. Like you guys had to have done something wrong or whatever. And it was just a failure. It is what it is. But
yeah, whatever.
After that happened, I don't know if you remember, I went to move into that shop in North Brantford, literally loaded everything up on a trailer, dyno, lifts, all that stuff the day that my lease ended, because the next day somebody was moving in.
Mm-hmm.
And then the guy withdrew the lease on the spot when he saw the dyno. So we were without a shop for months, several months.
Right.
Like 4 or 5 months. It was from September to the end of February, and had literally no shop. And that's what led to me building my car, because I was out of money, basically.
Right.
I had nowhere to work on people's cars.
Right.
And I needed to move into a bigger shop. So, because how do you, I had one bay, one lift, and a dyno. Like, how am I, hey, drop your car, spend $150,000 with me, and I'll leave it outside.
Right.
So it can get destroyed by the weather.
Yep.
And, I wasn't going to do that. So I never advertised that I was even working on GTRs.
Yep. This is where the story gets fucking sick.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is where the story gets fucking sick.
I remember exactly where I was. I was sitting outside my dad's shop. Like, it was so bad to the point where I would tell Chris,
hey, being your only employee.
Yep, Chris Rice.
The man, still to this day. Yep.
Show up when you wake up.
Yeah, that's a terrible thing to tell Chris. No, that's fucking noon.
But my point is, it didn't matter if you showed up at noon. We didn't have anywhere to work.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep, fair.
And not honorable mention, Chris never left. At one point, I paid his fucking cell phone bill and paid for his fuel so he can get to and from work that didn't really even exist. And he never left. Yeah. Months. It was like that.
Yeah, shout out Chris.
Yeah, huge.
That was sick.
Yeah. So I remember exactly where I was. I was standing outside my dad's shop at the time, and Zohair from Boost Logic called me. He's like, hey.
So wait, did you have Kimbo at this point?
Yeah, we were street racing it. We were already street racing it, doing all that shit.
So back up. All right. So the original Kimbo car, the same VIN number that you are racing today.
Yeah.
I'll just quickly blow through it, right? That was a full bolt-on deal. What was his? Woody Brim.
Yep, Woody Brim's car. Greg, he wadded it up.
Right.
Greg bought it from him. Not when I say wadded up, off the road, hit a fence, like whatever.
Let me blow through it real quick, right? So Mac does full bolt-on to Woody Brim's GTR 09, right?
Yeah.
And Woody Brim takes delivery of this car, almost immediately drives it off the road underneath like the 3-wire guardrails. The wire guardrails go up over the car, breaks both headlights, like damages some shit like the pillars. But at the time, and probably still to this day, everything for a GTR was crazy money, right? So like they totaled the car. It needed essentially 2 headlights and a paint job.
No, he brought it to the body shop and they told him it was gonna be $42,000 to fix it.
Yeah.
So they never totaled the car.
Oh, it's never.
And Greg bought it from him for a fraction of what it was going to cost to fix it, and then he fixed it for like $10,000.
Right.
And then I bought it from Greg because he wanted to buy his first Skyline.
Right.
I remember we were sitting at what was it? Pepe and Rose?
Holy shit. That place is gone.
Yeah. And he's like, I want this fucking car. I'll sell you the gray car right now for $35,000.
Yep.
I didn't have anywhere close to $35,000.
Oh, I remember.
Yeah. And I was like, deal. And it was like the look in his eyes was like, I shouldn't have made that deal, but I said it. I'm going to honor it.
Right.
You know, because I think at the time he already had an offer for like more than that, like 45 grand for the same car.
He also had his other one.
Yeah. He had his green card at the time. But he made the deal with me, and it was basically like a napkin deal, like handshake, and he stuck by it. So another shout out to Greg.
Yeah.
You know, he likes to remind me every once in a while, wouldn't be here without that car.
That is true.
Which is true.
That's
full
true.
I can't knock him on that. And then we just got crazy after that.
Dude, you got getting crazy. So how I remember it was we were out of the shop, and and you could go on to tell the specifics about Zohair calling you, right? But we essentially find the big shop.
Well, you're talking about when we street raced the car?
I don't remember the timeline.
So we were still in the straight jacket shop.
Okay.
We went out, lost a couple of races, bone stock.
Okay.
Said that we broke the trans.
Yep.
Sent the trans out to get fully built.
Yep.
Took the motor out.
Yep.
It's the first motor that we ever did in-house. Took the motor out. Got it done. Brian did the first one. Shout out to Brian.
Yep.
And we powder coated it the same color as stock. And I bought those turbos.
I know where this
that
is going.
were 30 Rs in the stock housing.
Yep.
And made it look as stock as possible, like modified the factory intercooler pipe so it had regular recirculating blow-off valves, like the whole 9 yards. Everything looked 6-injector, ID2000s, idled like shit on pump gas, like just so it wasn't a 12-injector car.
Right.
Made like 1,100 and then went back out with, you know, saying that it was the same car.
Right.
You know?
Is that when we brought it down to Jersey?
Yeah.
Dude, sickest. This is the sickest street racing story that I've ever been a part of in my entire life.
The Lou one or the Yachty one?
The Lou one. The Yachty one was funny. We just hustled Yachty. Shout out to Yachty.
Hey, we gave him the break.
We gave him the break. That one was whatever. We knew we were puppy kicking Yachty.
Yeah.
Well, the Lou thing, me and you knew we were going to fuck Lou up, but 300 people around us thought we were going to get
Lou was going to fuck us up.
Yeah. Lou was going to fuck us up. And tell him the story.
Well, the Yachty thing was
Well, Yachty was after Lou.
No, it was first.
Oh, it was?
Yeah, and that's how the Lou thing happened. So Yachty, something happened. I don't think he made the 1-2 shift or something like that. So I gave him the break as soon as I saw his headlights.
Well, you gave him the break in space, I thought.
No, just the break.
Space. Okay.
I think.
So
maybe half a car.
So Yachty had a C6 Pro Charge stick shift Vet.
And he was cleaning up.
And the car,
he was getting down.
He had it pretty sorted out, dude. Yep. I'm not going to lie to you. So, however we got there, I remember it was a weeknight. I do remember that.
We drove the car there.
Yeah, we drove the car there.
And we swapped the slicks onto it.
Right. And so Mac agrees that he's going to give him the break. And the craziest shit. So they're lined up. I remember it clear as day. Yachty touches the clutch pedal in his car, right? And and Mac lets it go and puts buses on him. And I remember when Mac came back, you were like, as soon as I seen the headlights flicker, I let it go.
Yeah.
He lost a blower belt.
Yep. So
he lost a blower
I
belt.
went and I put some space on him, then I lifted because I didn't want to go and make a fucking 8-second pass on the street.
Right.
And then we were going down. He's like, oh, it was $5,600 a side.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we got paid or whatever. We sent Durst to collect the money.
Oh, poor Durst.
Naturally.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So Durst was in like a Tahoe with a bunch of goons. They were not. Durst, for those of you that don't know, he's one of my whitest friends.
Yeah.
And we put him
Patagonia hat, glasses.
Yeah, Vans on, like the slip-on jobs.
Yeah.
And and but we put him in a Tahoe with a bunch of goons and sent him to the finish line.
To collect our money.
And they were knocking him to, like, I bet you got great credit. You probably
you probably know your dad real well.
They said you probably own a house. Yeah. Like all that stuff. But he didn't care, and he went down. He went, watched the race from the finish line, collected the money, and then Yachty's like, "Yo, you should race my boy. He has the same car as me." And we had already heard about this car at the time,
right? And so I had talked when Tyler was on. We were talking about Turbo Lou. Do you remember he cut the quarters to fit the 29s?
Yeah, so he had 29.5s on it. He had this is a ZR1 on spray 8-second car. I think it was like an 860 car or something like that,
right.
And 8-second car on spray 29s turbo 400 Like, before a lot of people were doing this shit. It was fucking cool.
Me and Nobus were saying that car was new at the time.
Yeah.
Not brand new, but it was
pretty new.
Pretty new. Still a $100,000 car.
And the only people that were doing that were, who was the dude that used to race the orange car?
What orange car?
The orange C6 radial. He would like race it in X. It was IRS, but it had the rear mounted 400. It was a big car. I don't remember, his name at the time, but it was a big time. And people were doing that on the track, kind of. Right. And he had this thing with the 400 and on the street, just fucking people up. And everybody was, you're going to get fucked up, whatever. So we had gone to Atco the night before and tested.
Dude, they ratted us out.
Yeah, for sure.
Somebody there ratted us out.
We tested, no time.
Yeah.
I remember we coasted. I lifted, we raced that V. I lifted, it went like 9.0. Mm-hmm. And so we had the car pretty dialed. And we brought it out the next night. We went and stayed at Connor Dev's house.
Yeah, shout out Connor.
Dude, it was fun.
Connor will be here Thursday.
He told me. I'm trying to get him to pick a quad up for me in Philly.
Oh, nice.
Bringing it with him.
Nice.
But, we come out the next night thinking like, all right, let's try our best to hustle this guy. And I'm sure Tyler touched on that. Like, that was what street racing was about back in the day. And now It's just like everybody wants to know what compression your fucking pistons are and everything. Like, they don't want to take a risk at all. He literally blasts us and went like, this car went 9.0 last night at Atco lifting at the 1,000-foot mark.
Yeah.
And we're like, yeah, all right, pal.
Like, somebody at Atco, like a worker, like sold us out. He knew like the incrementals. Like, he knew like 330. We were like, me and Mac were just like, fuck. And we're like, no, that wasn't this car.
I was like, crazy? That was that car. And it was another gray GTR that we had with us at the time, Breezy's car.
Oh, okay.
I was like, that was that car right over there. And he's like, well, I got somebody that knows GTRs. I want him to look at the car.
Yes.
I said, no problem.
This was the selling point.
I was like, come on, bud. And he's like, he's looking. He's like, I don't know. It's hard to tell. And I'm like, so a car that runs 8s is going to make over 1,000 horsepower, right? It would have to have a fuel system, no? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, so why don't you look at the fuel system? He's like, well, that would be kind of hard to get to. And I was like, buddy, you must not be working on GTRs that often, And I ripped the back seat up, and I'm like, it's got a stock hanger. It's got 2 fucking pumps in it. Come on, dude.
Right.
It did have 2 pumps in it, but we had a Kenny Bell booster behind behind the interior panel.
Right.
And it made like 1,100, whatever. But that sold it. So we used that, and we negotiated against Lou. Like, you got to run me off the bottle, dude. I got a 10-second car. You have an 8-second car.
Oh, God.
So we finally got him to take the nitrous off the car. And that was all she wrote. And he pulls up to me, and he rolls the window down, and he was like, congratulations. You fucked me. And I was like, it is what it is.
Dude, we hustled them. But it wasn't... It took a long time. We were in that parking lot for a very long time, going back and forth. Yep. And it was a big pot. And so then, we go from the parking lot.
12,000
I think it was right. I think it was 11 grand a side or something. And we didn't know anybody. And fast forward now, like, I tune all their cars, right? So like, but at the time I didn't. It's
Primer Nick, all those dudes.
Primer Nick. That was right when, if I remember this correctly, his car used to be yellow. That was like the first night it came out black.
Oh, I didn't even remember it being yellow. Yeah, it was just black.
Right.
Matt, all those guys.
All those guys that I talk to on a weekly basis. I have one of their cars up here at least once a month, once a week, whatever. And so we go down there. We're arguing forever in the parking lot. There's like a group of like 5 of us total, and then there's 60, 70 of them. So like, we basically feel alone. And I remember we go from the parking lot to the street. And if you've ever been street racing in Jersey, right? Shout out to fucking street racing in Jersey, right? Dover Road, dude. So this road is pitch black, dead straight for miles. No breakdown lanes.
This much breakdown.
So like, I'm talking the white lines on the sides of the road. You have this much more pavement, and then dirt, and then probably
woods.
And
then the finish line was a bridge, so you can smack it if you were anywhere near the white line.
So I'm like scared shitless. I'm not even fucking driving, right? So I remember walking up to Mac and being like, "Yo, you good?" And he rolled down his fucking window in his car, and you're in there just banging like mob deep. And you're like, brother, we're good. Rolled the window back up, and that's all she wrote, dude. The light goes off. Mac leaves them. I wish I could have captured the emotions on the starting line, right? Because there's like 70 people that bet on Lou, that know Lou. Lou's the man,
Yeah.
right? And as soon as your car made it 60 foot, you could fucking hear a pin drop on that starting line.
Yeah, Connor Dev, Chris Fry's running to the 8th mile.
My God. And then I quickly realized, I'm like, damn, they probably have now figured out that we just hustled them really bad.
They're probably really pissed.
And now they're really mad. And I'm like looking around and I'm the only one, you know what I mean? There's like 3 of us and I'm like, this isn't a good idea. You know, nothing happened, you know.
No, a lot of races went off after that. And
Yeah.
I actually stuck to the story when Lou was like, you fucked me. And I was like, dude, come on, look at this car. And I opened the hood and he's like, this thing's bad, bro. And I was like, yeah, but that was it. We never got a grudge race after that. We only had cash days after that. Yep. And then I botched a couple of the cash days. Remember the one I lifted on Halloween in Maryland?
In Maryland.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Who was it that came around you?
What's the kid's name with the?
It's not Anderson. Oh, Adam.
With the red
yes,
SN95.
Yep, Adam.
Yep. So I first raced Wild Bill first round.
So the gig was up, right? The gig was up. Everybody knew that after we fucked Yachty up, after we fucked Turbo Lou up in Jersey, there was no more street racing to be had. Everybody knows the car is fast. So the only shot that we got is we have to go further south, and we only can do cash days. So we end up in a cash days. I think Dave Pearson put it on.
I think so too, because they had
Right.
that Mustang. That Mustang, remember, it came out of a sick trailer with a truck with 24s on it. And we're like, damn.
Yeah, we were like, dude, these guys got it together. Oh my God, Bill McCall.
Yeah, so we raced Wild Bill first round. He
Yep.
puts the thing basically on the bumper,
Right.
goes off the side of the road,
Yep.
and we got an easy win. And this is back again. Still, the jig was up that the car was fast, but I don't think anybody knew that it was an 8-second car on the street. You know what I'm saying? So,
well, people also weren't accustomed to, especially in on the East Coast there, like you didn't see GTRs really on the street.
dig racing besides Mike Breen, OG,
Mike Breen,
still out there.
Yeah, so same car.
I know, love it, dude. I love it.
Yeah, so like a lot of these guys, they're really smart guys, but they just don't know imports like that.
Yeah.
Right. So like, yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, so they didn't realize, because it wasn't a 15-inch wheel. It wasn't a 1,500 horsepower car like Little and all those guys that were racing in the Bronx at the time that were fast as hell.
Right.
Those were 7-second cars on the street back then. And so I don't think anybody knew how fast it actually was. So I raced Bill. I heard him womping the throttle a couple of times. I got out on him. I lifted.
Bill McCall in the Malibu wagon with the rear doors welded and painted.
Up.
It's a beautiful car.
Yep.
I think the car's still around. Nitrous,
Cocaine
small
train.
block, cocaine
Love
train,
that
dude.
thing, dude.
Do you remember the shit he talked to us beforehand?
No, not really.
Dude, he came up to us. I think he was a little tipsy. He didn't know us. We didn't know him. And he was talking all sorts of shit. Greg got all fired up because we pulled him first round, and he's like, "You want to do something on the side?" And you guys might have done something on the side.
I think we did. I think we
right.
did like $1,000 or something.
And we ended up fucking him up. And then go on, tell the rest of the story. This is a cash days down in Maryland, by the way.
Like after we raced Bill, the road was really bad, but our car got down any road. So I used to like racing on another really tight road, no side. I used to like racing on a really tight road because I knew that if they had to lift, I was going down regardless.
What was the name of that road?
I don't remember. I never raced there again.
I do remember.
But it was cold, it was dewy, and we knew we had the entire field covered.
Right.
And so the next round, we go out, same thing, lights the tires up, basically drives off the side of the road. I make like an 8th mile hit, and I lift.
This is racing Adam in his
Yep.
Turbo LS
SN95.
SN95 pump gas. Shout out pump gas.
Yep.
Big pump gas killer.
Yep.
For real though. Not
Yeah,
even
what
joking.
isn't that? Is Instagram Pump Gas PSI? Something like that?
Is it?
I think so. I think
Yeah.
it was. Maybe I was wrong. But yeah, and I lifted it like the 8th, thinking like, dude lifted. He went off the road, like got him covered, no problem. Because I saw him literally getting crazy off the side of the road, shit like that. So I made the 8th mile hit, coasted.
Right.
And then I hear, I was like, oh no. And the pumpkin, because the pumpkin was the finish line, was on Halloween.
Yeah.
Pumpkin was the finish line, was 10 feet from my car, and he literally almost blew my door off coming by me.
Yeah.
And I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. Like,
Dude.
we had that, because the road was so bad, I'm not saying we had the baddest car out there. There was a lot of bad shit, but the road was really bad. It was dewy, it was cold, like perfect conditions for our car.
Yep.
And yeah, we blew it that one. And then the next one after that was one of the ones in Jersey on, not Dover, what's the other one?
Are you still talking Jersey?
Yeah, Jersey, but different cash days, location. There's another like famous road in Jersey, not Dover.
I'd be lying to you
the
if
woods.
I told you. Oh, the Woods.
We're in the Woods. And
wait, isn't the Woods Dover?
No, two different.
Okay.
The Woods. We're in the Woods.
I'm pretty certain they don't use either one of those roads anymore.
Probably not, yeah. But then, remember we had that, they want us to shine lights instead of giving thumbs up.
Yeah.
And you literally were like, don't leave on my light. Yeah. And the light went off in my window, and I just went, and I red lit. And another one where we probably would have had the field covered, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, and they still do that to this day.
Yeah, I think we got to get back out for like King of the Blacktop and stuff like that.
I don't think you or Noah are invited to King of the Blacktop.
I'm not talking about my car like all-wheel drive or something. I think I'd have to build a car for it, but I just think we got to get back out there, you know?
Yeah,
maybe we'll buy another Tahoe.
Another tow rig Tahoe?
Yeah.
Shout out to the Tahoe.
Yeah, shout out to my mom.
Yeah. So then, so we're doing a bunch of street racing. We're winning a bunch of stuff. And then I think that's when we got invited to Street Outlaws.
It was a little bit after that. That was after we got the shop, made the jump. So that's when Zohair call happened. And he's like, hey, man, listen, like, I've got these turbos that'll go faster than the TSM Elites. And at the time, the TSM Elites were a stock frame turbo that were running 8s.
So let's back up. For whatever reason, and to this day, I won't understand it, right? But the big popular thing at the time with GTRs was as fast as you can go with the stock. What do they call it?
Stock frame. So
the stock turbo folds, right?
Yeah.
So in the GTR's factory, the exhaust manifold and the exhaust housing of the turbo are one piece. And for whatever reason, these I'm just gonna say it, these fucking queer GTR guys thought like going as fast as you can with the stock exhaust manifold / exhaust housing was cool. So go on.
It was cool.
I don't know how cool it was.
The reason why it was cool is you didn't have to change the whole car around. It bolted to your factory inlet. It bolted to your factory style downpipes. Like, it was cool because it was a turbo kit that didn't cost $15,000. It cost $7,000 and would still make 1,400 horsepower, 1,300 and change. So it just wasn't. It wasn't.
Whatever, man. It wasn't cool. It wasn't cool.
You know what I'm saying? It was more practical for a lot of guys. It was cheaper, whatever. And then cars started going pretty fast on them. So that's when it became a thing. Like, this is the fastest car with stock manifolds on it.
Right.
And at that time, again, we were out of a shop. I was losing money. I was losing customers. So I didn't have anywhere to work on their cars.
Right.
And I was like, I got to do something. So Zohair had hit me up. He's like, hey, I got these turbos that should make more power than these Elites. And I was like, all right, I got no money. And he's like, let me send them to you. Pay me when you can. So I ended up being able to pay him for the turbos. And then we just went out of control. And I knew that we had to put it on Motec because the issues that we were having on Ecutech. And I was like, I'm not going to go through this again. Like, this is my last shot.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to spend all my money and money I don't have on this car.
Right.
If it doesn't work, I'm cooked. Like, cooked. Done.
Dude.
In debt.
And
finished.
The crazy, so mind you, this isn't like how like the story was told or how like somebody remembers it. I was fucking here for it, right? So like, he gets his hair across his ass, dude, about the stock turbo fold stock location record, right? I remember immediately. I was like, that's the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my fucking life. But let's do whatever you want to do. This kid maxes out. Like you said, he doesn't have a shop. He's got basically no income at the time. He's got a couple assets. He's got the dyno. He got some cars, right? So he's literally maxing out credit cards and building this. You borrowed against the dyno.
Yeah, no. I borrowed against the dyno to buy the car in the first place. So remember, when I said I had Greg made the deal for $35,000.
Right.
Like, I had the dyno paid off at that time, and I was like, shit. Like, this is such a deal. I got to figure it out. I had no credit. I had never really financed anything, and I was like, wait a second. Like, let me see if I can refi my dyno.
Yeah.
So I got an equipment loan.
Yeah, you found some sucker.
No, it was the same company that I had used before. And I'm like, hey, this thing's worth a lot more. I owe nothing on it now. I owed like $1,500 on it at the time. And so it was just like I kept paying my dyno payment, but now I had the car. So they were able to give me 35. The thing was worth still almost $60,000 at the time.
Right.
They were able to give me 35 against it. And that's how I bought the car from Greg.
Got it.
Yeah, I had a credit card. I had one credit card to my name at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I bought a billet crank on it because I knew we were going to make more power. I put the billet crank in the motor with the same rotating assembly, same rods, same pistons,
Right.
same everything that it already had.
Yeah, the shit we've been street racing for a couple of years at this
because
point.
I couldn't buy the nasty turbo tops and stuff like that. So I'm like, all right, let me just at least do the billet crank.
Right.
And this all happened in 30 days.
Yeah.
It happened right before New Year's. And I remember I was in Vermont celebrating my birthday.
As you do every year.
On New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
And I texted Rob Harper. I messaged him. And I said, like, hey, man, this is my plan. Like, I want to race it at GTR World Cup.
So wait, you didn't know, you only knew of Rob?
Yep, I didn't know him. He was in Dubai at the time. He wasn't even tuning in the U.S.
Alpha Logic.
Yep. He wasn't tuning in the U.S. like at all. Like maybe 1 or 2 cars, but like just like maybe old customers that he was still tuning, whatever. And I said, like, this is my plan. This is what I want to do. And he was like, yeah, you're not going to get that done in a month, but if you do, hit me up and I'll tune it. And I'm like, sick. All
and
right,
if you know Rob Harper, that is quote, end quote.
Yeah. He's like, yeah, that's not going to happen. He's like, and like, just to let you know, like, it's not an easy thing to run a 7-second pass. Like, you're not just going to go out there and do it your first time out. And I'm like, whatever, dude.
Yeah, fucking watch me.
Whatever. You know, and yeah, I still like that to this day. You know.
Yeah, he's still like that to this day.
But
literally talked to him last week. He's exactly.
I talked to him this morning before I went to the gym. But yeah, he's like that, and I'm like, all right, whatever, we're gonna do it. Not run the 7. We're gonna get the car done.
Right.
So I bought a Motec off of Matt Owen, Dedicated Motorsports.
Oh shit, I remember that.
Used.
Yep.
I said, hey man, I'm gonna send you a deposit for this thing. I'll pay you next week. No way to pay this guy.
Right. Yeah, no money on the horizon.
I had a titanium exhaust on my car, sold it, paid for the Motec.
Yep.
You know, like I'm like, I'll get another exhaust sometime. I'll run it with open down pipes for now, you know? Same thing with the trans. I sold the trans to Justin. Remember?
I do, yeah.
Yep. Justin Castro. I sold the 1K to him. Victor had a stage 5 for sale. This is how me and Victor became boys, actually. We didn't really know
Alvarez.
each other. Yeah.
BMP Victor.
Yeah. We didn't know each other at the time. Just mutual friends.
Victor used to have GTRs?
He had it from a customer's car.
Yeah.
And
all that shit Victor talks.
Yeah. Everybody was into him at one point, you know. And he had this stage 5 out of a customer's car at Shep, fully refreshed with the level 5 axles. Like I had the bolt-in axles for my car, like with the level 5 axles, the Porsche hubs, like all the crazy shit. And it was a decent deal. I think it was like 20 grand. Like you couldn't buy that trans right now for 20 grand.
Right.
And I'm like, I'll take it. And he loves the story. He calls me a piece of shit all the time. But I was like sending like whatever Justin was paying me a week for the 1K, I was sending to Victor. And after like 3 weeks, he's like, yo, man, I didn't finance you this fucking transmission. Like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, listen, just bought a house. Like, I can only, he's like, me too, man. I get it. You know, no worries. And I'm like, fuck yeah, that's my boy, you know?
Victor is the man, dude.
And then I had to sell the LS out of my RX-7.
That you still have.
Yep. I sold the LS out of my RX-7 and to pay for the rest of the transmission. I was selling everything that wasn't bolted to the fucking floor.
Right.
To finish this car.
Right. I remember.
In hopes that we would do well and that would boost our business.
Right.
I still had no shop. So we built this car in Jamie Marsh's shop right over here.
Right.
And I'm like, yo,
right.
Because I couldn't tie up one of my dad's lifts. He does general repair. You know what I'm saying? So I couldn't tie up one of his lifts.
That's
so
right,
we yanked the thing apart, brought the motor to Brian, put the billet crank in it, sent the trans out. Like I bought the wheels off Jardine. I bought the trunk and wing off of Chris, like all the stuff from the black car. I bought the suspension from Greg. I got intake manifold, all the rest of the supporting stuff, basically. I got the intercooler from Greg when he parted his car out, alpha suspension, all that stuff. And then I got the intake manifold and pretty much everything else from Zohair went on a bill. Like, hey, I'm sending it to you. You owe me for this stuff. And we got this car together somehow. I had never wired up a Motec before, like didn't know what the fuck I was doing.
Right.
And then I remember Derrick grabs a laptop. He's like, I can fucking figure this thing out, you know? And he goes in there and we got it to like puff, like we got it to run, but it did not run well. It ran terrible. And he's like, dude, you got to get somebody to do something with this thing. Like, I don't know. Because Motec, if you've ever been inside one.
M150 specifically.
Yeah. They're extremely complicated.
Yeah,
like,
they are.
Crazy. Like,
I think the GTR package in the Motec makes it even worse. But yeah,
But even now on a regular firmware, it's like, I don't know what the fuck any of this stuff is. And for something in a fuel tech that would have one table, there's 40.
Right.
And you have to tune all of them.
Right.
And it's crazy. But so I contacted Rob. I'm like, hey man, we got this car like finished. Like, can you come in and just get it idling so I can put it in the trailer? Like in the trailer. We didn't drive it. We didn't do anything.
Nope.
It was outside. I think it was snowing.
Mm-hmm. I remember exactly. It was nighttime. Yep.
Rob logs into this thing live. And I'm sitting there, and I just started laughing because we're struggling with this for a couple of days, and he's buzzing through this thing. Like, I can't even keep track of his cursor, like, using shortcuts on the keyboard. And he's like, going through this whole thing. He's like, all right, start it. And it's like, and it just runs. And I was like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
So we literally loaded the shit in the trailer and drove to Florida. It just idled.
Right.
Drove it to Florida. We put the thing on the dyno at Titan. Rob flies in.
Wait, is that when we rented the F350s? Was that year? Because we brought Secadino's car down too? Or was that the next year?
No, we brought Secondino's car down, FBO. We brought Breezy's car down, Motec as well.
Yep.
That was the deal. So, again, I had no way to pay Rob for tuning. So I told one of my other customers, hey, let's go. Because he wanted to go Motec first because he was a Honda guy. He's like, let's put Motecs in these things, whatever. Yeah. So, again, shout out to Breezy. Yeah. I made the deal with him. I said, I'll do the work. I'll install the Motec. When it comes time, I need you to pay the tuner. And he was like, done. So we put the Motec in Brett's car. We got his car running. We just trailered him down. Yeah, but yeah, I think Chris Jardine hooked me up with Enterprise.
Yeah.
F350.
Right.
Because he had an account with Enterprise.
Right.
And we dragged the shit down. And
I think me and Steve. Yeah, me and
Steve,
him. Yeah.
John.
Scumbag Steve.
Yep.
Me and Scumbag Steve.
All right. On the thing the other day with Noah about Luke's car, when you said my buddy Steve was like, fuck this guy, selling the fucking car. Was that Steve?
Yeah, that was Scumbag
I fucking
Steve.
knew it.
Yes.
EK Steve.9. My
oh
boy.
my God. Yeah, Steve's the man, dude.
Yeah, hell yeah. So we all went down there, and there's 20 of us, maybe 15 of us out there. Everybody's got their command shirt on.
Yeah.
We just trucked down there.
We don't even have a fucking shop, dude.
No, we literally didn't.
We don't even have a fucking shop.
Yeah, and we went down there. And
this is Moroso.
Titan.
Oh, I'm saying the race was at Moroso at the time, right?
Palm Beach.
Yeah.
Is that Moroso?
Yeah.
Yeah, Palm Beach International, the GTR World Cup.
Yep.
And we go down there a couple days prior and meet Rob at Titan. He never met this guy in my life. He hops in my car, and he's like, this thing isn't going to make, it's not going to run a 7, it's not going to make whatever, whatever, so just don't get your hopes up. And the thing goes on the dyno and makes 1450, and he's looking like, and I'm like, like I knew it the whole time,
bad motherfucker.
And I'm like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
So now I'm happy, and Nero takes me for a tour of the shop.
Yeah.
And I hear the car go, wah, and he shuts it off, and I'm like, oh no. And then Greg walks in, and I'm taking a tour, of Titan, whatever. Greg walks in, and he looks like he saw a ghost. And he's looking at me, and he goes, lost oil pressure. And I was like, fuck. And I wasn't even that upset. I was like, you know what? We fucking tried.
Yeah, we made it this far.
It was our first one.
We're in Florida.
First motor.
Yeah.
We tried.
Yeah.
And Rob's like, it's just weird. Like, it just dropped. Like, it's not making any noise. Like, take the filter off it. Let's see. Take the filter off it. Mint. No bearing material, so I'm feeling a little bit better about it. We stick a scope in the oil pan, and we look up at the pickup tube, and it's got a bunch of pieces of Cometic gasket, paper gasket. And I'm like, what the hell is that? And Rob looks at it. He goes, those are the oil galley gaskets. So I get on I think there was a company called Speed for Sale at the time. They were in Georgia. I get on the phone with them. I was like, I need the metal Dodson oil galley gaskets overnighted to Titan. We ripped the motor out of it, remember?
Yeah.
Took it all apart.
I do remember
Took the timing chains off it, and that's when Rob knew that we were race cars.
No, wait. We took it from Titan to Boost No.
No. That was a TX2K. Another time we had to take the motor out.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's two different states. That's not even close.
Yeah. So he's
Here,
like...
let me check my phone real quick.
You're good.
Keep talking.
Hang on. This is Victor. Yo. Yeah, I have the ABS kit and everything's on there. Vic, I'm on a podcast with Derrick right now. We were just talking about how you financed me that transmission that time. Oh, yeah, hang on. I'll put you on speaker. Go ahead.
Intention conventional, known financing option.
Yeah.
I got shafted.
Yeah, he said the story truthfully.
Oh, okay. I just want to make sure this guy's not just telling people that I finance parts. Because had I known what I was signing up for, I would have told him to get fucked.
Well, that's why we did it that way. Because if you had known, then we wouldn't have got the transmission. We wouldn't be boys.
Right, Victor. It wouldn't.
What would have happened is if I would have sold it to someone else in the time that you were waiting to pay, because then I wouldn't be stuck with you as my friend, and I wouldn't have had to finance you the transmission.
True.
Come on.
It wouldn't have worked out any other way, Victor.
There's a lot of people to thank in this story.
There's a lot of people.
I'm gonna come up there and get some pizza.
You're not coming shit. You say that you've been saying that for 2 years now.
Well, now I have a reason. The podcast.
Oh,
that
yeah,
would be
big podcast
amazing,
guy.
dude. That would be
Yeah.
amazing.
Podcast guy.
Yeah, he is. And he's got his YouTube channel now. This could work out for everybody.
I know, this could be sick.
Yeah.
All right, we'll see you here next week. Bye.
So now I gotta do a bunch of editing, figure out how to keep that in.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, so then we blew the oil galley gaskets out of it, and we're like, fuck. And I think Rob maybe expected us to give up, and we didn't. And we pulled the motor out, and we had it back in the next morning, and we went to the track. And then we get to the track, and the car has no front-wheel drive. Do you remember that?
No.
Yeah, it had no front-wheel drive, and it wouldn't 60-foot. It was going like 130s, and he was like, hey, dude, we're not going to be able to do much with this. And he's like, check the wiring, check whatever. And we just thought that the front wheel drive.
I do remember this.
On that trans.
I do remember this.
You remember what happened after this?
Yep, I do remember this.
So we're going, and we get the car to go pretty deep in the 8s. I think we got it to go 830s. And at the time, somebody else was trying to do it. They were already going 820s. And we go, and we're kind of fuck, we're beat, basically.
Yeah.
And the next day, Rob comes to the track. He's like, hey, I had a dream about something, and I want to try it. He said, it's either going to go really good or really bad. And I was like, all right, let's try it.
Let's do it.
And the thing goes 120 something to the 60-foot, and it goes 8.0. And by the end of the weekend, we went 770s.
That was the record.
It was 8.2 or something like that, and
Yeah.
we went 778 at 181. Thing was hauling ass.
Mm-hmm.
And we end up getting contested, and they wanted to check the car. Then they didn't check the car. And then the next event was TX2K, and the car passed tech. But still, everybody was slamming us. But moral of the story is, we went down there, we did what we were trying to do, came back, and the phone just started ringing.
And that's exactly how I remember it. So we left, no shop, but I think you had found the shop right next to Jimmy's.
I hadn't yet.
We found it when we got back?
I had looked at it.
Right.
And
right, that's what I'm saying.
But the guy would not rent it to me because it had a long-term lease from somebody else. And he's like, why end my lease that has 10 more years on it with somebody that just continues to pay for it? And I'm like, well, if you change your mind, let me know. So we got back from this event, and the phone was ringing because, again, the GTRs were huge still back then. So these guys wanted to go fast for not as much money, just like everybody else in the world,
right. Right.
And so they started calling, how'd you do this? What do I need to do? What can you do for me? And I wasn't like, hey, man, I don't have a shop right now. I'm like, come on with it,
Come on with it.
And I was just like, yeah, this is what we're going to do. So I'm writing quotes, estimates, all this stuff. But I still, to that day, was not even setting an alarm in the morning. When I woke up. And I tell this story all the time. For whatever reason, it was 7 a.m. And I just looked over at my phone, which was on silent, and it was ringing. And I answered it. And it was Rich. No, what's it?
Ray.
Ray. It was Ray. And he said, hey, man, this shop is yours if you want it. And I'm like, I'll be there in an hour. And I went there, and I said, listen. He's like, you got to get it. You got to get it zoned for automotive. We need to do this legit. Whatever. Beautiful shop. The floors were coated. LEDs.
It was 4,000 square feet.
Yeah, it was a nice shop.
Yeah, it was nice.
And I'm like, I want it. I was like, but you need to do me a favor. I have an event in 3 weeks. I have to put a lift in here. I was like, I don't care. I won't do anything else. I will not bolt anything down. Just let me lag a lift to the floor. I said, everything else will just be sitting there. If we have to get out because we don't get approved, I'll leave. I was like, but I need you to let me put one lift in here. And he was like, fine. We put the lift in, and we did my car, Brett's car, because Rob told me, hey, this thing's not going to last with these pistons and rods in it, because it had regular off-the-shelf wrist pins, regular off-the-shelf Turbo Tough rods. So,
and this is early on in the GTR making power days.
Yep. So we ripped all the stuff out. We rebuilt the motor. We did all that stuff, but stuff just started working out after that. And then within a month, the shop was full of cars.
Full.
Everything.
And I remember because I was working with them at the time, right? Because I was kind of, I had my shop with John and Noah, and that was never really like a full-time deal, right? But I was also tuning cars on the side, and
You were still at Bell.
I was still at Bell. I still had a job like a loser, and so I was working with Mac in all my free time. And I remember at the end of every night, dude, we must have had 30 GTRs.
Yeah, it was a lot. We drive them all inside at night. What you're talking about?
That's what I'm fucking. And they're all M1 or E85, massive injectors. They all start like shit. They have all small batteries. They're all dead. Me and Chris Rice, dude, would walk around with a fucking jump pack, dude.
Well, this was after you were at Bell. You weren't there working until you left Bell. I remember Derrick was like, "Hey, man, like, I think I want to tune full time. Like, my job fucking sucks. Like, whatever." And I remember I was like, "How much do you make at your job every week?" And he was like, he told me whatever, and I said, "I promise I'll give you at least that much work, and you could tune in your spare time. Quit that gay ass job."
Yeah.
And he was like, "Fuck it," and he quit. And then you moved your toolbox in, and you worked there every day until you were busy enough with tuning that you didn't have to do it anymore.
Right, and that was like 2017 because I remember I quit my job 2017.
2018.
You think it was? I think it was 17.
No, because I went to Texas in 2019. So
Okay.
it was the beginning of 2018. That was when we went to that GTR World Cup.
Got it. And then I remember I quit my job on a Friday the 13th. And I just remember being like, this is Steve. Steve was also working at Bell. Scumbag Steve. Shout out Scumbag Steve, right? And yeah, dude. Yeah, that was scary.
Yep.
Yeah. Shout out to Mac, dude. Held me down, dude. Early days. I couldn't have done it.
Well, fuck it. I mean, I'm big quit your job advocate.
Yeah, me too.
Johnny, when he wanted to quit his job, everything. You
Yeah.
know, so it's
having a job sucks.
yeah, jobs are stupid.
Yep.
And
I mean, shit. Here it is, 2:00 on a fucking what is it? Monday?
hanging.
Just podcasting.
Yep. But yeah, so that was it. That was all she wrote, really. And then we were just busy after that, just building cars. We did the next year. We did Dan Secondino's car again. Raced it at GTR World Cup with stock turbos on it.
Well, yeah.
With a built motor, stock turbos. Remember we tried to put the Nismo turbos on methanol and blew the wheels clean out of them?
Yeah, I caught the car on fire.
One of them, he had just got the car wrapped perfect white. And it, since it blew the turbo up, it started spraying oil out of it. So it started burning the oil, open down pipes. The entire passenger side of the car was charred, brown, stained. Not like we could wipe it off. Stained brown from the flames coming out of it.
Oh,
One
I
of the
remember
wheels,
it like yesterday, dude.
one of the wheels went into the parking lot. The
Right.
other one came. The compressor wheel went into the parking lot. The other one came out of the intake.
Right.
And across the shop was spinning on the ground like a dreidel.
I remember because I was running the car in the dyno. Rob was tuning it, and I remember we're making a poll. This is a 4.1 stroker.
No, it was a 3.8 at the time that he ended up selling to Rafe after we took it out. But 3.8 at the time.
Methanol.
Methanol Motec, tiny, like literally stock turbos that they're OEM Nismos, so they're a tiny bit more than stock. They'll make like 750 instead of 680, you know?
Right.
And we just wanted every advantage we could get. So we put the thing on Motec, like they went crazy with it. And then blew the wheels out of it.
Right. And if you don't know, you can't open a GTR's door until there's 0 wheel speed.
Yeah. So you're in it burning.
I'm on the dyno. The thing ignites, right? Literal flames rolling over the passenger window, and I can't get out. And I remember Trap running over to trying to get the door open. It was scary. That sucked. That part sucks.
It's not the first time that happened.
No, it is not. But
yeah, so we just went. That's how we made power, though. You know, so these guys were all saying that we were fucking cheaters because we show up. I'm 23,
right,
and we show up with these GTRs, and we're just fucking people up.
Right.
And it's only because it's not. I say this all the time. And it's not just then. It's everything in life. Like, we're not smarter than anybody. We're not better than anybody. We just try harder.
Right.
We just work harder. Remember, we worked for 3 days that one time. You went home, slept. You came back, and we went to Napa, and me and Chris were like knocked in the car because we hadn't slept for like 3 days. But we just looked at the rules and said, okay, what is everything that we can do within the rules?
right.
So these guys got all pissed, and this is back when there's forums, GTR Life, GTR Heritage, stuff like that. And they're blasting me on these things, that I'm a cheater, that I'm stealing money from people.
That kid Mitch.
And yeah, Mitch Michaels, yeah. And that I'm stealing money from people, whatever. And then they came and they actually contested the car, because they contested it at GTR World Cup, but we didn't win because the car wouldn't go on launch control. So they didn't care anymore. So then at TX2K, we came out, we ran identical numbers, and they're like, we want so before they even contested the car, because I already knew it was going to happen. Remember, we had Peter come over and check it, and he measured the turbos. Everything was fine, but there was no limit on fuel. There was no limit on anything. So the car was out there, 3,600 pounds, while these guys are at 4,000 pounds or whatever. Mitch had carbon doors, like all that stuff too.
Yeah, Mitch's car was cool.
Yeah, it was light and it was done well. Half gas tank.
T1 car.
Half gas tank, all that stuff. But they're making 1,300. We're making 1,450 because the car's on M1 and they're on ethanol.
Right.
And nobody looked at that or thought of it, and I wasn't out there.
Because you'd be stupid to do it.
And I wasn't out there telling everybody what we were doing to go way faster than everybody else.
Right.
But we just pushed everything to the limit of the rules. If the car needed to be 3,650, it was 3,650.00 pounds.
Dude, we heard a ton of shit doing it.
Yeah.
We fucked a lot of shit up doing
That's
all
what I
that.
said. It wasn't the first time we lit the car on fire on the dyno, because we blew them. Remember? Then we put on
M5.
Then we put on M5.
We tried putting on M5, torched the
We
cylinder wall
tried
right
to
out of
really crush the record, like go 740s,
Right.
and we wrecked it. It pre-ignit, because is that even a word? Would it be pre-ignited?
I don't know. I like pre-ignit. We'll
right,
go
cool.
with that. Yeah.
So it pre-ignit or pre-ignited.
I think it's pre-ignited.
So
pre-ignit doesn't sound okay.
So when we did a compression test, it had zero compression, because we were trying to see, like, can we fix this thing maybe, like whatever. It had zero, like didn't even budge the gauge. Then we put it to TDC and it passed a leak down test, and I'm like, how the fuck? So we put a scope down in it. At the top of the stroke, the ring is sealed. At the bottom of the stroke, there was a hole this big in the sidewall. So so it had literally ignited at the bottom of the cylinder and blew the hole out of the sidewall. And then when we were leak down testing it, it was fine. But yeah, we just got crazy, because every time we put it on the dyno, it made more power.
Right.
So when we put it on the dyno, we then went to a 62 millimeter in the stock housing.
Right.
And I don't know if you remember, we put on Kenny's at East Side.
I remember. I was
rear
just
wheel
looking
drive
at the video this morning.
On 20s, on M1, and the thing made 1710.
4 people in the trunk.
Yep. It made 1710, and we're like, this thing just keeps making power no matter what we do
Kimbo,
to it.
dude.
Yeah, no matter what we do to it, it just makes more and more power. So then we got crazy. Mind you, we went 770s on 1400.
Right.
1450. So then we went crazy, and we brought it down to Florida, and Rob's like, fuck it, let's put some M5 in this thing. Last time I've ever put M5 in a car, ever, because now it scares me.
Dude, that story, if people ask me all the time, they're like, you think I should put my car in M5? And I'm like, I don't know, man. I've got pretty bad experience with M5.
Yep. I remember, and we just poured M5 in it, not thinking the AR on a hot side on a stock manifold car is like 0.22.
Right.
Not like 1.5 like we have on a car now, or 1.28. Like
it's like a softball.
0.22. It's this big.
Right.
And we didn't even think anything of it. We just kept going. The 7 bars on the back pressure sensors were pinned a year ago.
Yep.
So we're like, it just keeps doing it. Like, let's just keep doing it. And we poured M5 in the thing, and the first hit, it made like 1,300 and something foot-pounds of torque. And it went, and it just nosed over. And I was sitting in the trunk at the time, and I was like, oh, that thing's cooked. And then the flames came out underneath my shoes, because, again, it annihilated the motor, started burning a bunch of oil and stuff like that. And the flames came out, and I was in the trunk, and it came out the back of the car. And Rob had already been through this drill a couple times, so he already had the door open, swung the thing open, almost lost the carbon door, but went back in, got his foot on the brake, and ended up shutting the car off before he exited.
Nice. Thanks, Rob.
Yeah. But yeah.
Thanks, buddy.
Then that was it for our FL2K trip that time. But yeah, so
wait, that was it?
Yeah.
We didn't fix it?
Fuck no. We didn't have a motor. We're poor.
Man.
Now I keep a motor with me. I probably have one in the truck.
Yeah. Yeah, now you keep spares.
Yeah, but yeah, that was it, dude. And then it just keeps going and getting more and more out of control after that.
Yeah, it is pretty wild. Eventually, so what happens is that Mac ends up actually getting merged with the shop Houston.
Yep.
Basically, I'll just tell this story real quick. I remember we were extremely busy at Command. Things were going great. the Shop Houston approaches Mac and basically wants to buy you in a sense, right? And so, you know, Mac's my boy, right? So we're talking, he's telling me numbers, and I'm like, and he agreed. Like the first offer, it was like, no, like not even on the fucking radar. He's like, yeah, dude, fuck these guys, right? Second offer was pretty good. And, but again, it was like, dude, you can make more money. Like things are going pretty well here, you know, as we're looking around, like Supras and GTRs and all sorts of shit. Fucking, you know, the shop is packed, right? And so he told him no, right? And then the third offer, I remember you coming back because they had flown you out there, and you came back with the offer. And I remember being like, you got to take that fucking offer.
Yeah, I mean, I had a number in my head where, in my opinion, I was like, they would be stupid to pay me this. I would be stupid not to go.
Right.
And it wasn't that I wouldn't have made that money here. In just those few short years, I already realized, like, this isn't what I want to do for the rest of my life. Like,
right.
For those of you that don't know, owning a shop sucks.
Yeah.
It is one of, and I love cars, and I still love cars. I'll still always have a shop because of the passion I have for it. But as a business, it is one of the hardest businesses and one of the worst businesses, in my opinion. You know, everybody wants everything for free.
Yep.
It's their hobbies, but it's your life.
Right.
And they treat you like for so many years when I would go and ride snowmobiles or do something, I wouldn't post about it because I know that someone out there is pissed that I'm not working on their hobby on a Sunday. You know what I'm saying?
It's tough, right? I tell people this all the time, right? Because like for guys like me and you, this is our life, right? Well, not you anymore, but at the time for you, right? So like, you know, people call me up, on a Sunday, and I would look at my phone and I'd be like, the motherfucking nerve on this fucking loser calling me on a Sunday, right? But then when you really think about it, the reality is exactly what you said. This is their hobby.
So on the weekends,
Sunday is their free time. They're excited about it, right? Like, yeah, I tune a fucking million cars. They have one.
Yeah.
And they're fucking hyped about it, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a catch-22.
Yeah,
right?
I understand it. It's just difficult. You know, it doesn't make it any easier for you. You know,
no,
like
it doesn't.
And again, there's a lot of guys that can bother me on a Sunday. There's a lot of guys that I'll get a call from them on a Tuesday, and I'm like, come on. You know, like, you know, so
let's get realistic here,
it's
pal.
difficult because a lot of people aren't realistic. That's the problem, you know? So, and that's also the problem with the fucking internet is after a certain point, everybody's GTR should make 2,000 horsepower, drive 400,000 miles on the street and never ever break is what they think. Because nobody ever posts and say, hey, my shit blew up today. Everybody always posts their draggy time and this, that, the other. I remember specifically a customer telling me, hey, I want to run this 60 to 130. We go out, crush it by 2/10. I want to run 2.9, car goes 2.7. What the fuck? My buddy's car went this fast, 60 to 130. I said, has your buddy ever beat you in a race? Well, no. I said, tell him to take his draggy time and shove it up his ass. Click.
Yeah.
And, you know, but that's what the fuck? What do you mean what the fuck? You told me what you wanted to go. We went 2/10 faster than that.
Right.
And you're calling me, this is bullshit. I spent a lot of money. So it's a difficult thing, but quickly I realized being here in Wallingford that owning a shop wasn't going to get me to where I wanted to be. So that was a big decision in going to Houston. I was still going to run the shop and do all the things I do now, but I was going to get a check every week. When you own a business, you know it's just as good as I do.
You don't make money unless you make the money. Every
dollar you make goes back into it. So yeah, we went from making probably a couple hundred a year to I don't know if you even know this, but in that Wallingford shop, we did over $1 million.
I believe it.
You know, in sales. Not we didn't make over $1 million, but did over $1 million. And as you grow, it's just more of your money going back into it.
Right.
You're not like, hell yeah, I made $1 million. Let me take $100,000. Let me, let me do this. Let me take
the profit probably wasn't even any more than it was when we were in the single shop.
No, I mean it's better, but you don't see the profits. So you're going to work. You're killing yourself every day to not feel like you're making more and more and more. You know what I'm saying?
Being so close to you during that time is honestly the reason I don't want to upscale.
It's hard.
It's the reason. So like right now, my shop's 1,500 square feet. I have a dyno. I'm the only one that does it. Like me and my wife and Mac and people that are close to me, we've talked at length about like upscaling, making more, whatever. But it always comes down to you need good people, and that's fucking impossible to find.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just more money, more problems.
Yep.
Right? So I'm kind of all set with upscaling in that regards.
Yeah, I mean, it went from floating $10,000 bills for Evos and hoping the guy shows up for the car that he's been pestering you for 6 months, you know, to floating over $100,000 for GTR stuff. And like, you need the car to get to the event too. So the guy doesn't pay you. You put the money out of your pocket if you can afford it.
Right.
And then the car breaks and then he still doesn't want to pay you. And it's not anything that was your fault. You know what I'm saying? You didn't build him a shitty car. Like the trans, let's say the trans. You're always the
asshole.
Yeah. Let's say the trans that I did not build broke, still my problem.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that's stuff that sucks. And so for me, what bothered me about that is I'm doing better and better and better, but I don't necessarily, because I keep wanting to grow. It's impossible to not want to grow. Like, you know, you look at it and you look at the dollar signs and you're like, all right, like I'm going to keep going. I'm going to buy another lift. I'm going to hire somebody else.
Right.
And it's great. But at that time, I'm like, if somebody was to approach me right now and say, hey, give me $50,000, we'll turn it into 150 in 3 months. I couldn't do it. I didn't have it because I had it, but it was in someone else's car.
Right.
It was in someone else's bill. And then when you get paid from that guy, it goes into this guy's bill to order his parts because you don't want to slow your shop down. Shop owners will understand this, you know. But that is the real reason I went to Houston, so I can get a check every week. And now I'm doing the same amount of work. I had more stress. I had 12 guys there. I had 3 guys here, you know. So,
and I think you brought all of them to Houston.
Trap stayed, Chris came, and then a bunch of my boys came with me.
Right.
But like, it was just one of those things where you keep putting everything you have into it. So I wanted to get something back out of it, and I was getting something back out of it. So now I can put my money into other businesses. I can put my money into other investments, which I did. You know, at one point 2 years ago, I had like 5 businesses, transport. You know, a bunch of different stuff. Anything I can get my hands in, really.
Right.
But I wouldn't have had that cash available if I was always the one holding the bill. If I was always the one floating the shop.
Floating the monthly expenses.
Always.
Right.
So, you know, fast forward however long, now I'm part owner in the shop, you know, all that stuff. But that was the real reason why I left, was because I wanted to grow more than I saw the shop. And I remember when I made the decision, a couple shop owners messaged me and were like, you got this figured out way before everybody else.
Right.
Because some of those guys, I'm not saying it's too late to do anything. You can do anything in life at any time.
But they're deep.
It's too late for those guys.
Right.
Or it was too late for those guys.
Yeah, they built buildings, whatever the case may be.
So they're like, you got it all figured out. Like, not all figured. Nobody ever has anything all figured out. But you know what I mean?
Right.
In that aspect, they're like, you're doing the right thing. And that made me feel good about it. And, you know, looking back on it now, every step of the way, every mistake we ever made, every time we ever fucked anything up, every car we blew up, you know, and again, we've only ever blown up our shit, my own stuff, Dan's turbo at that time. You know what I'm saying? But like, we did the R&D on my stuff to be able to pave the way for everybody else's stuff.
Yeah, fucking poor Kimbo has gotten the shit kicked out of her. That is for sure.
Just takes it.
Dude, I don't know if she just takes it, but we keep bringing her back. We keep bringing her back from the dead.
It's done. It's been through some stuff, dude.
It's been on fire a couple times.
Burned to the ground in Memphis.
Burnt to the ground in
30
Memphis.
hours later.
Tyler Nobus, first on the scene.
Yep. I think he still talks about that sweatshirt that I own. Maybe that's Beswick. Somebody used their sweatshirt to help put the fire out.
I don't think it was Tyler, because I think Tyler was too busy filming it.
Oh yeah, that cocksucker.
Yeah. Tyler.
I remember I was like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? And he was like, oh my bad, and like got rid of it, you know, whatever. But it's just natural, like, oh shit, let me grab this and look at this, you know, $200,000 car burning to the ground.
Yeah,
on
Tyler's
the street.
first one to the scene. Okay, so just a short story. We get invited to Street Outlaws with the car. Oh, dude, it's all coming back to me now. Fuck that whole experience. That was so gay. But
it was so fun, but
it was fun,
retarded,
right?
Yeah.
We get there early. We're making a couple test rips on the street, right? And the car goes down there, makes a fucking lick.
Yeah, we're laying it down.
And the car is fast, right? And at the end of the strip, we're on the street. This isn't a part of the show. This is like 4 days prior to the show. Testing, right? Mac's car catches on fire. I think Tyler had just made a pass, so he's down there. So Tyler gets to the car first, but instead of helping, Tyler pulls his fucking phone out, dude, and fucking records the whole situation. And Mac had to talk shit to him, and then he helps him put him out. Gets the car put out, right?
Everybody helped get the car put out. By that time, it burned for long enough. Mind you, we made an 8th mile hit. It shut off at like maybe 500 feet. Lost all power, shut off. And I was like, what the hell? And then it just went poof. And when the methanol ignites, you don't see it.
Right.
But it went, you could see the carbon hood go like this. Like I knew it was on fire.
Right.
And it didn't, you couldn't see the flames until it was burning the carbon. So I'm standing there a quarter mile down the road now doing jumping jacks, like trying to tell people, hey, there's a big problem down here.
Right.
And mind you, we didn't have a cage in the car. We probably didn't have seatbelts in the car. We had no fire suppression. Like we were just, I don't think we knew how fast and how dangerous the shit we were doing back then was compared to everybody else. Like that car was fast. I still show people videos of that. Everybody that says they want to make 2,000 horsepower on a street race, I'm like, this car right here would have fucked you up.
Yeah.
And it made 1,400, you know? And
The car was fast.
it was fast and it was fun. But yeah, we burnt it to the ground. We can tell stories for 20 hours here.
Yeah, dude. That was a gnarly story. But
My dad flew in my mom's purple suitcase.
yeah.
Durst let him in the shop. I'm like, grab that wire harness, grab this, grab that.
So the car. So what had happened is that Rob was tuning at the time. It was still on Motec. Rob still tunes it to this day, right? It had a heavy traction control system on it that had ignition cut, and in one of the back of the fuel rails, during one of the cuts, it had broke the fuel line feed off of the back of the rail and literally just hosed down the engine bay with methanol, right?
Because it was mechanical
Mechanical pump. So the thing is on fire, whatever, we get it out, right? Now, the actual show taping is in whatever, 2 days from that point, right? So Mac calls his father here in Connecticut, right?
Well, first, the thing that bothered me about this whole thing is first, I got in contact with JJ and with production and stuff like that. And I said, I'm going to fix this car. I need to know that I'm going to be able to race.
Right.
Because all we had was, I think that point we didn't even have the bolt-in in it. I think we had no cage in the car.
Right.
Maybe we had like a 4-point bolt-in cage. And I'm like, I need to know that I'm going to be able to race this car. So they're like, got you. Don't worry about it. Go
Because
ahead.
JJ was talking that shit. He was like, yeah, you're in, dude.
Yeah, don't worry about it. You fix that car, youngster.
Yeah.
We're going to get you in.
JJ the boss, right?
Yeah. So we go and I remember Durst had the key to the shop.
So the car's burnt, right? We're literally asking locals like, hey, is there a shop that we could use the lift? Dude, and I don't know who it was, but somebody handed us a fucking card or a phone number.
Yeah.
And was just like, hey, call these guys. They got a lift. We call these guys. They're like, Arkansas.
Last name John. Johnny John.
Johnny
Billy
John.
John.
Yeah, Johnny John and Billy John, dude.
Automotive.
And dude, I'm talking deep shit we've never seen. Arkansas.
Cornfields. That's
Cornfields, dude. Shit.
Crop dusting plains.
Dude, so we show up to the shop. Fucked up shop. I hope they don't hear this, right? Dirty as shit. Single lift. They let us on the lift. They don't know us.
Nope.
And it's me, Mac, and Chris Rice. And we take that fucking car apart. And as soon as we're figuring out what is damaged, wiring harness, whatever, from the fire, Mac is relaying that information to his father here in Connecticut. His father goes to the shop that, where all the parts were at the time. And
I was on FaceTime with Tyler, just pointing at things. Get
Right.
that, get this. But Zohair, again, came through for us.
That's right.
That was what we did first.
Right.
We yanked it apart and tried to figure out. When we say on fire, it melted the windshield.
Yeah.
Like it was, if an insurance company showed up, they would have looked at it from 40 feet away and said, totaled, here's your check.
Totaled.
Like melted every AEM sensor on the car. We had 2 of them left, I think. We put one in the intake manifold, and we took coolant pressure out. Oh, intake manifold, fuel pressure. Those were the only 2 sensors we had left on this thing because it was melted. Like there was 0 loom or sheathing on the wire harness.
Right.
It was
Melted.
just copper wire.
It was, fenders brown, hood brown, everything.
Yeah, headlights melted. It was
Right.
totaled. It melted the radiator. Like
Yeah.
it was totaled. And yeah.
So Max
Zohair
dad
overnighted us injectors because it literally melted the injectors.
Right.
Like everything.
The whole
Yeah.
thing. And so we're taking this fucking thing apart in these random people's garage. And so Mac's dad flies in with no luggage. Gangster shit. His luggage is filled with GTR parts here from Connecticut. and he shows up in a rental. We got the motor out.
He got the flat tire, remember?
Yeah, he got the
flipping out.
Dude, losing it, right?
He probably changed the tire in 4 minutes. He was freaking out. He shows up in this little, it was like a Mitsubishi Mirage. And my dad's not a small dude. He's not as big as he used to be. He used to be big. But he's in this little Mitsubishi Mirage. Probably no smoking, chain smoking cigarettes in the thing. Pissed
100%.
off, no reason to be pissed, but just pissed off all the time.
Yep.
And flying over there, he gets a flat tire.
Yeah.
He changes the tire on the side of the road. And then also, he doesn't know how to use a GPS and stuff like that. So we had to find him somewhere out there in Arkansas. So we took the truck, went out, and we're flagging him down. And he's going 90 in this thing, and he's on the brakes almost so hard the thing doesn't endo, makes the turn, whatever. But just real quick to touch back on, because I know some of those guys still do follow us. If it wasn't for those guys, and when he says a shit shop, that would be the sickest shop ever to have in your backyard.
Oh,
they had
for
a frame,
sure.
They had a frame table. They had all kinds of cool shit. It just wasn't. We didn't go to another performance shop. We went to
this was a general repair
these
shop.
guys were fixing. They were selling cars. They were fixing used cars out of there.
Right.
And yeah, so they
didn't take $1.
No, we
from
offered
us.
them food, and they said they didn't even want food. They said, "Son, we're about to start our liquid diet and watch you boys." They brought their own 30 racks each, and we're just crushing beers watching us work on this car. And
some real American shit.
oh yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah. And we get the car back together, right? And well, actually, we get the car most of the way back together. Then we trailer it to a parking lot of a speed shop.
Second chance.
And
second hand.
And they were cool as
Performance.
shit. They literally just opened a tab for us. We rolled the car out of the trailer. We're working out in the parking lot. They opened a tab for us. Him and Chris were working really hard. Me, not so much. I would walk into there, literally pillage through all of their shit, hold it up. They'd write it down. I'd walk out to the parking lot. And and we were just getting the car fixed.
When it was secondhand automotive, it was because this is down in the fucking gutters in Memphis.
Yeah, Memphis, deep.
It was a consignment shop for race car. That's how race car Memphis is. They had used Dominators sitting on the counter, with the tag on them, like a clothing tag that says $200, stuff like that. But it was the only place you can get lines and fittings, and all that stuff melted. So we had to remake fuel lines, all that shit. Yeah, we had no hood on the car. We had to cut the hood hinges off.
And we had the windshield had broke and melted.
Yep.
And we had to cover it up with vinyl.
Black vinyl from Staples or something like that.
Right, so it would pass tech. So then we get the car together literally hours before the taping of the show. And we have a hot rod. This is the most frustrating part about it. We have a fucking unit, right, for the street, at least at the time, right?
Yeah, this is before Street Outlaws was going, 390s on the street. This is when they were barely going, mid fives, and we were going deep fives on the street.
Right.
2017, because it was before we wrapped it Kimbo tan.
That's why we wrapped it.
That's why we wrapped it, because they didn't make the wrap anymore, and it was melted off the fenders.
Yeah. And we get there, and so the nighttime comes, and the cars show up, and we're thrashing on this thing in the parking lot, and it's time to race. We're with Team New York, right? So we're with Team Philly. No,
it was both.
One night was Philly, one night was New York. So I think we were actually with New York.
Yep.
Because Tyler was there with his new Edge with the small block nitrous.
I think Philly raced when we were still working on the car the night before.
They did, and they did Philly dirty because Philly won that deal, and then the show made it like they lost.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they won more races than they lost.
Oh, and then they didn't air certain stuff that they won. Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
And then the next day was us in New York, and we were getting the car back together, and I can't remember exactly what happened, but you probably do, but essentially they just didn't let us race.
Yeah, they were like, oh, no, no cage, this thing can't race, and I'm like, but why not, well, this is the street, it's not. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't have had a cage in the car, because we should have. And we did put one in it after that so we could race at the next one. But it's just the problem that I had with it, why I was so pissed, was I wouldn't have done all that. I would have fixed the car correctly. I would have done it all the right way. I wouldn't have spent all the money on overnight shipping and flying my dad there and rental cars and stuff like that.
Well, I remember the thing that really sent me over the edge is that one of those producer queers came up and said that this car would probably be better suited for farm truck and Asian. Because they were doing that sleeper, catfishing thing.
Yeah, and it was not looking too good at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would have fucked them up.
Yeah, we would have won that deal. So that was a tough deal. But from there, Kimbo basically turned into a full-blown race car.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it was after TX2K that year is when it turned into a race car because Rob Harper ripped my headliner out with his bare hands.
Why?
At the track at Beta Logic. We were trying to set another record again.
Yeah.
We were on 58s now.
Well, hold on. We fucked the whole. I don't remember exactly what happened, but we were at TX2K and we didn't break the record.
Nope.
So we rented some.
We tried that new suspension. We wasted a bunch of test passes.
Oh, that's
Yep.
right. Yep.
And then the car had no oil pressure regulator on it. The brand new Precisions, they're custom made Precisions, 58 millimeters, and they were smoke. Do you remember how bad the car was smoking? Like a freight train.
Dude, I remember you made a rip. So we go and we rent this random track, and they killed it. They radial prepped this thing. It was sick, right? But there was no ambulance. There was no nothing, right? And I remember being on the starting line. Mac makes a rip. It was close to the record or something, and he lets off the throttle, and you can't even see the car. It's all smoke, right, at the big end, right? And I remember the track official, the guy, he probably owned the track for all I know,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I remember him
Derrick.
leaning over to me, and he was just like, "You might want to go get your boy. I think he's on fire." I'm like, all right, yeah, let's go. You know what I mean?
If you let it idle, it would smoke. If you raised it off idle, it was fine. So there's actually, that was when we won. No, we didn't win TX2K that time. But
Dan probably won it. Dan won everything.
Dan always wins
Yeah.
everything, yeah. Wins the Rolex in a raffle,
Right.
The
As
only
he's wearing one.
The only guy with us that can
Yeah,
afford a Rolex
right.
wins it for free.
He's receiving the gift, he has a Rolex on. He's
now
like,
he's got
"Thanks."
two on, yeah. We're drinking Hammer and Shirley Temples, dude,
Right.
'cause none of us drink alcohol anymore.
Getting squirrely Shirley's, dude. Getting wild.
And but so there's a video of it at TX2K, and it is the starting line is just smoke, like as if we just did a burnout on the starting line, and then the car goes on the launch control, and the smoke just goes whew, and clears out, and it makes a full hit. But at the beginning, Rob is actually the one that made me race the car. I was like, I'm not racing this pile of shit. It's fucking smoking. It looks like a piece of shit. He goes, race the fucking car, man. Whatever. And whatever he said, you retard or something.
Right.
And that's a big word on this podcast.
Oh, yeah, hard R's, dude.
And
that's why I should name the podcast. It's hard R's.
you might get some wrong intention from that one. But he's like, just race the fucking car. Like, who gives a fuck what people think? Like, all that stuff. So we went out and we raced it. And we didn't get the record. But then we went the next day and rented a track 2 hours away. And then that's when we did get the record. But yeah, I remember.
Did we get the record there?
Yeah.
Sick.
Yep. And I remember it was such a terrible decision, but I didn't want the car to idle. So I drove the car back with the chute behind me.
Yeah,
like somehow it didn't catch the fence, but it knocked over a bunch of trash cans on the way back, like all of them.
Right.
And, because when I stopped, the guy's like, your boy's on fire. Like, you should probably go down there.
Right.
And it's just because when the car returned to idle, especially after making power, it was just billowing smoke out of it.
Billowing smoke. But now the car's set up, it's got a 4-link floating axle. It's a real deal race car now. But I think, does anybody else know this? What's going on with it?
No, not really.
Are we going to say? Nah, we'll leave it.
I always like to. I like to not say anything about we've done this every time. We'll do a insane setup change, and nobody hears about the car for like 2 months, and then it comes out with a tubed front end, top mounted turbos that nobody's ever done before.
Shit's never been done.
Like just wild stuff, and I like to try to keep it like that. This isn't anything crazy wild that's happening. Just the car never was meant to be what it is now.
Right.
So every step of the way, we just took it to the next step, the next step, the next step. So when we built the cage and the chassis that's in it right now, when we built the cage originally, it still had a GR6.
Right.
So it was all-wheel drive. So it's got factory floors, factory wheel tubs. It's got a bunch of metal in the car that could be gone.
Right.
And it's just heavy. So we're racing an X275. In my opinion, when the car is actually sorted, it'll compete in X275 exactly how it sits.
I agree.
It now at the point where it's awesome, again, knocking on wood, but it's awesome. Like, it shits 420s out of it now. Like, it's on the wheelie control. It's on the wheelie control. It's on the drive shaft curve. It goes like 427. Like, we got to a point now where the car is harder to work with because it was never supposed to be what it is right now. Like,
right.
It's heavier. It's over by 100 pounds.
Right.
Without any ballast on it.
It's lighter than it's ever been, but it's heavy for the class.
Yep.
It's got the factory floors in it, which if you've ever seen a GTR factory floor, they're fucking bulletproof. Big square frames. The wheel well tubs are thick and they're massive and they're all in the car. But originally, like Mac was saying, like, you know, it had a front clip put on it, you know, it had a strut front end put on it, but like it retained a lot of the factory firewall placement and stuff. And in reality, in hindsight, all of that shit should have changed.
For sure. Like even the front end, when we did the front end, like Noah did the front end of the car.
Yep.
And it was built for what we had at the time. So the front frame rails are tied together really tight. The bars go, instead of going all the way down by the front bumper, so we don't have enough room for certain stuff in the front. Like it's just like the car, like I said, we got to a point where the car just needed work. Like it was going really fast, and it is going really fast, but like we've been racing on the same shocks for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
You know, obviously last year I started something new. I moved to New Mexico. I raced the car like 3 times.
Right.
So like we haven't had time to actually work on the car. It needs a gear change. It needed a converter change. The shocks are worn out. Like it just needed work. And that's what we were battling with the last couple of races. Like again, it went very fast. Like didn't have a wicker bill on it. We didn't have any issues with it before, but we put some weight on the front to stop it from wheeling. Now we're shaking the tire out the back. Like it just continues to need more work like any race program does. I just didn't have the time last year to put it into the car. So we're making a couple changes with it right now that should help it huge. You know, Derrick, Rob, they did a bunch of math. We made a big ratio change in the trans. Like we're doing a bunch of small stuff. He's talking about something different that is a plan for the future. But
secret shit.
Yeah, top secret. But, you know, when it comes out, everybody will see it. I just don't like saying stuff until it's finished.
Right.
You know, otherwise people are like, oh, I thought he was going to do this.
Yeah, he said he was going to do this, right. So, yeah, I mean, the problem with Mac's car now is that, it's got like a 90-something mid-plate to axle center line. So the motor's way out front, right? Mm-hmm. And it's just, when you're talking about racing on 275s, and I think the crankshaft is really high in the thing, too, if I'm not mistaken.
Because it's at factory height to have a front differential, axles, stuff like that.
So the motor's way out far forward and way up high. So what that translates to is either you got to get the front end in the air, right? On any race car ever made, right? But when you set the car up to get a motor that is that far out to get the crankshaft up, it's either going to wheelie. It's more than likely going to wheelie, right? Which is why you typically would have the motor further back and a lot lower. So that's where we're at now. So we're just making some changes. We're not even moving the motor right now.
No, we've changed. So this last year we made big changes. We changed the package completely. Rob's tuning the car again. So it's working totally different than it did before. Mm-hmm. Rob tunes the engine differently. Like right now, what's the starting line ratio? Wasn't it something insane?
Oh yeah. So it had a 210 first,
148 second,
and a 373 rear. So I think that's
rear.
almost a 7.0 starting line ratio, if I'm not mistaken. I think
it was like 7.4.
Yeah, it might be.
That.
So just do 210 times 373, and I think it's something ridiculous. What do you got? Just
7.8.
7.8. Yeah, all right. So I was way off.
It needs to be
right?
what, 6.2?
I mean, the lower the starting line ratio, the easier it is to manage, right? You get to a point where it's just a dog out of the hole. But here's the thing. Mac's car makes a lot of power, right? For a single 88, it is a top contender for horsepower. I can almost guarantee it because, as much as I hate on GTRs and R35s and whatever else, those what are they? What are those?
VR38s.
VR38s, those things. And I've been around a ton of them. They make insane power, right? So, we're going to knock some ratio out of the starting line, but we have an abundance of horsepower to get it to go. So we're doing that. We're doing a couple other things. We're getting the shocks rebuilt. I think this year is going to be better. We're always going to be battling what we were just talking about with the motor way out front and way up high. The car is still heavy for what we're trying to do. But, those changes will come. But I think this year the car is going to be really, really good.
For sure. Like, it was really hard to leave the shocks just weren't working. Like we're trying to change them. We go one click and the car lights the tire up because it goes from 0 to nothing on the shock in that one click. Like it goes from dropping to the limiter to not moving at all.
Right.
Like
you're talking about the front shocks. The front shocks, we would go from full loose to one click off of full tight, and the shock data wouldn't change at all. And then you would just so naturally you're like, well, we need the shock tighter. Just go full tight. Just go the one more click. I think it was legitimately 2 clicks, right? And you go 2 clicks, literally lock the shock solid. Couldn't move the shock. And of course, like we're thrashing between rounds, right? Because there's a million different things going on when you're running when you're in eliminations, and so we don't check. I always like to get somebody to pull up on the car just to make sure shit like that doesn't happen, right? And we didn't do that, right? And we go out there, blows the tire off on a tune-up that definitely shouldn't have, right? That should have wheelied like it had been doing.
Yep.
And we get back and we look at the data, and very quickly I'm just like, yeah.
So we're just like
it didn't move.
Continuing to band-aid stuff, like, and that's what I always kept saying to people, like the car just needs to be worked on, like it needs time to be worked on. And mind you, we tested before FL2K, and we went down the track 11 out of the 12 passes. Another one, it did spin the tire and it was something that Rob had tried,
right? And
he immediately put it back. Car goes straight down Broadway again.
Right.
We go out to FL2K 1 week later, and it's really hot and it's raining a lot. So the track was very difficult to work with. Out of 2 rounds of qualifying, 16 cars, so 32 passes, 3 people combined out of both rounds of qualifying made it down the track.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just us. So we didn't want to chase our tail on that one.
Right.
So we go out to Maryland, and again, we just didn't have time. It's 2 weeks between that and the next race. So we didn't, and we were still just chipping away at this new package to where when Miller was working with us, there wasn't any changes he had to make yet, or he could have made yet. Right. We didn't see the big problems with the shocks because the car was still going slow.
Right.
Well,
and it was on good tracks.
Yeah, and but it was still going slow, so it was, we're just...
Shout out Bradenton.
Yeah, best track. I literally tow my car there to test. Wade is the man. Vic is obviously my boy. I go there, whether we have to rent it or whether Wade's doing a pro testing, it's just, you're getting the same track every day. So if we're going there to test for 3 days...
we could go on, we could have an entire, and hopefully I do have another entire show about BMP, because that racetrack is the best racetrack I have ever been to, and Victor's crushing it.
Yeah. He's the man.
He's the fucking man.
It's just, again, we just keep band-aiding stuff. So the car just needs work. It's getting the work it needs right now. Hopefully we're going to come out. But Rob said to us last time, we're leaving on 5 degrees of timing. Before, we were leaving on all of it with 150 shot.
Right.
And it's going very close to the 60.
Yeah. A couple
numbers
off. What it was
before.
Right.
A couple numbers off. It's been 105 before. We went 110 in eliminations in Maryland, not at Bradenton, in Maryland, and it still went 427. The best car's ever gone was 425. So we're there with no nitrous, with no timing.
Right.
We're just chipping away at it. But that's another reason to car wheelies, because we're leaving on such little power because the starting line ratio. That when you try to put power into it, it's just going to wheelie.
Right.
So all that stuff should be sorted. I think it's going to be a little bit of a learning curve first time out with it, because it's totally different. But
we're doing another ECU package change.
Yeah.
Right. So, and that's when you're talking about Motec, you're basically, when you talk about package changes, right? So just real quick, right? Like Motec, you get a package for the car. So when it had the GTR transmission in it, you would run the GTR package because it has all the CAN bus data to talk to the TCM and stuff. So it's set up to run a GTR in normal GTR fashion. When the car went to a Turbo 400 and a 4-link, we really didn't need that level of control, but we did need more drag racing functions. And we went to a different package. I'm not going to say it. Whatever. Yeah. And it just didn't work out, right? It didn't work how we needed it to work.
For a race program. It is a good package.
And dude, there's a ton of cars that fly on that package.
But the guy who makes the package tunes the cars.
Right.
And that's the difficulty we have. It's not that it doesn't work. It's that when we need something, our tuner can't make the change without the developer making the change on the back end. And then sometimes he does make the change without realizing that something is stopping it on the back end that he can't even see from changing. So we go out and the car runs the same number because the second kit didn't turn on because there's some parameter that needs to be, something that has to be active.
They missed, right.
That he can't even see.
Right.
So it's just for our program with our guys and stuff like that. It wasn't for us. It worked. It got the car going just as fast as it has ever. Right. But obviously we want to go faster, so we need, but that's part of racing, dude. If you're not changing shit, like you said about Luke and Noah and all these guys, if you're not basically rebuilding the car,
dude,
to make a change, you're not going to compete. We brought the car out. I asked everybody that knew John Sears to talk to him about getting my car in on Twins. It has the smallest motor, makes the least amount of power. At that time, it was IRS. Like, just let me run. He basically said, the best I can do is you can show up to these races and ask people in the staging lanes if they have a problem with it, and if they don't, unanimously vote no, then
that would never happen.
Which would probably never happen. And what do I do? Show up to 10 races and be able to race at 3 of them?
Yeah.
Or, whatever. So,
drag your shit around the country just for a hope.
So that's why it has a single turbo on it now, So we're changing the setup every year, if not a couple times a year, but that's what you have to do. Like, look at White Rice, dude. They are testing that car. I don't know who could possibly be calling me several times in a row.
Oh, I see it. It's the same number.
Same number.
You should just block it.
Yeah, I did that last week. But we'll check when they're done. I mean, this person's called me twice in a row, but I've also received many, many calls. I have
just flip that thing upside down. Nobody cares about this.
23 missed calls and 27 text messages.
That's why I'm on airplane mode, brother.
It is what it is. But so we're taking those next steps to, again, just try to compete. But like I said, look at White Rice, dude. They have a program for that car.
Yeah, 100%.
And several motors, and they're always testing, and that's what it takes to be competitive. Yeah.
I mean, listen, I've said it probably on every podcast, the 2 previous podcasts so far, but if you want to know how these guys are successful at drag racing cars, it's because they spend more time testing than they do racing, right? And last year, Mac didn't have the ability to do that, but this year, it's going to be different. We're going to do it.
Hopefully. We'll see. I've been pretty busy. I think I'm going to Arizona next week, so
we'll be all right.
All over. But yeah, we're going to work on it. We're definitely making changes in the right direction. I know I've been talking to JoJo about crewing the car, and like you said, just like with business, with everything, having the right guys is key.
Everything.
I have a good group of guys, but we need somebody that is their job.
Yeah.
Turn the car around, be able to help us with suspension changes. Right. When, because Miller's racing an HRA, he helps us as much as he can, but sometimes he's not available. Yeah. And that's part of it. Right. That's just like we've used remote tuners for how long? Sometimes Rob's not available.
Right.
But that's why we're building a little army of people to get this fucking car down the racetrack.
It's going to be good this year.
Yeah. So.
All right. Well, sick. We've gone an hour 47, dude. This was sick.
Yeah.
I had a good time.
And we could go for another hour 47.
Yeah, we're gonna have to. We'll have to get you back in here because we could do this all over.
No, nobody wants to listen to a 3-hour podcast.
No.
I've been on a couple 3-hour podcasts, and I don't even listen to them.
Honestly, when we got to the hour 15 mark, I was like, all right, we got to wrap this shit up. It's an hour 47 right now, so we got to go.
Yeah.
All right, dude. Thank you. Comment, subscribe, whatever all those YouTubers say. But the growth has been sick. You guys are amazing, dude. So let me know in the comments how this went, what we need to do next, and we'll see you next time.
Later.
See you.